So sorry class. I just need to take that in very important call. Um, where are we? Okay, let's just make a run through na lang, a run through again on the extinction of criminal liability. Okay, first is by death of the convict. So very self-explanatory. If the person died, even if or if that convict failed to or has not fully served his sentence, um, once he died, the criminal liability is extinguished. The heirs, the descendants, the successors in interest will not inherit, no, will not inherit the criminal liability. Unlike in the civil liability, whereby the heirs of the person determined by the court to be civilly liable can still be held civilly liable up to the amount that they have received from the decedent. Okay, so that is death of the convict. Then service of the sentence, very self-explanatory. Once you serve the sentence, then your criminal liability has also been extinguished. If you are adjudged by the court to serve in prison for 10 years, then you are in prison for 10 years, then you have fully served your sentence, then your criminal liability has been extinguished. Amnesty and pardon, okay, or absolute pardon. I need to discuss this by by contrasting their elements or their effects, no, so that you will have a better understanding what is amnesty and what is absolute pardon. Okay, so when we say amnesty, it is a form of pardon, no? You have pardon a class of person. There are a number of people who were adjudged to be guilty by a political offense, okay? Political offense. Then if they are all of them are being pardoned, then that is amnesty. So classes of people. But if the pardon was granted to an individual, a singular person, that is absolute pardon. Okay, for example, of political crimes, rebellion. Okay, rebellion is a political crime. For example, the surrenderies of, let's say, the MILF surrenderies, no, or who are considered to be a rebel group, but they want to surrender and make peace with the government. So they are pardoned by the government, no, for their political crimes, or that is rebellion. So the classes of people rebel, no, classes man, there are number of them who surrendered, then they are pardoned because of their political offense, which is rebellion. Yung I said about President Erap Estrada, it was not amnesty. It was an absolute pardon because single person lang naman it was only him who was pardoned, not because of his the crimes committed was not also political in nature, because it was plunder. Plunder is like it's like it was plunder. So pagpangawat, no? Pagnanakaw sa kaban ng bayan. So it's plunder. So it's not really political in nature. Okay. Another difference between amnesty and absolute pardon is that may be exercised before the trial or investigation. Like for example, what I said, the rebel group, diba? Before they were, for example, I am an MILF, there are 5 of us who are MILF surrenderies, and we wanted to, to be part of the government now, and we don't want to be part of the rebel group. So even if without trial, you are still being investigated, if it's true that you are part of the MILF, the government can also already issue amnesty. In absolute pardon, the person needs to be convicted first. Like again, in the case of President Erap Estrada, he was convicted of plunder. So there should be a trial, then conviction, judgment from the court. Okay, judgment from the court that convicts you of that crime. In the amnesty, you don't need to be, there's no need for a actual conviction. As long as there is an investigation, the government can already issue amnesty. Okay, so looks in amnesty, it is as if you did not committed any offense. If you are given amnesty, then it would seem that you have not give. It would appear, it would seem that you have not committed any wrong at all. This is very strong powers of the government not to issue amnesty, because it will erase not only the penalties to be imposed, but also the action itself, no, theoretically speaking. Okay, theoretically speaking, because even the reality is that you have committed that you are a rebel, that you rebel against the government, but because of the amnesty given to you, it would appear that you did not commit any rebellious act, but in truth and in fact you have. But in the eyes of law, it would seem that you have not committed any rebellious act. Here in absolute pardon, it looks forward because, diba, you are convicted. You have convicted. It was already determined that you are criminally liable. But because of the pardon granted to you, no, you don't serve anymore. There's no need for you to serve anymore the penalties imposed to you. No, that is what we call extinction of or extinguishment of the penalties. Because even if you are convicted and it was determined that you need to serve this X number of years in prison, but because of the absolute pardon given to you, no, because of the absolute pardon given to you, you don't need to serve anymore the penalties imposable. Okay? But in both cases, it does not. Both do not extinguish civil liabilities. Civil, under Article 100 of the Revised Penal Code, every person who are criminally liable are also civilly liable. Meaning, for example, in the case of Erap, if it was determined that he is guilty of plunder and it was determined that he was able to was able to malverse, let's say 100 million pesos of Philippine money, 100 million pesos, no, of government funds. It doesn't mean that he was given absolute pardon, that he should not pay anymore. He should pay the 100 million if it was determined that he was able to malverse 100 million pesos. Okay, because even if the criminal liability was extinguished in amnesty and pardon, the civil liability has not been extinguished. Okay, civil liability payment, no, more of the money aspect. Okay. Okay, it is public act which the court shall take judicial notice of. Okay, public act meaning there must be a law to be passed, no, to grant amnesty. Here, for amnesty, in pardon, it is a private act of the president, meaning it is only the president who can give, absolute pardon. In this case, since it is a public act, the court can take judicial notice. Automatic. Once the law has been passed granting you amnesty, there is no need for you to go to court and plead it nga, I am now granted with amnesty. But in absolute pardon, since this is a private act of the president, you need to prove in court that indeed the president issued a decree of absolute pardon. Okay? Okay, valid only when there is final judgment, valid if final judgment. I think mali ni. Because under your module, valid only when there is final judgment. There's no need for a final judgment because you can be granted amnesty even during investigation. So I think the description valid given either before or after final judgment should be under amnesty. Then valid only if there is a final judgment that's under absolute pardon. Okay? I hope that is clear. The next topic is prescription of penalty and prescription of crimes. Okay. When you say prescription of crime, no, okay. For example, A committed a murder. Okay, A committed murder, and then even though A committed murder, a case was not filed against him. Okay, wala na filean, or the court did not acquire jurisdiction. Okay, even if there's a case filed, but the court did not acquire jurisdiction over the person of A. How can a court acquire jurisdiction? Did you already have your criminal procedure, class? Have you taken criminal procedure yet? Not yet.
Not yet, sir.
Okay. So that's the that's the difficulty. Okay. Criminal procedure. Concept lang of criminal procedure. Acquisition of personal jurisdiction over the person of the accused. Okay. Through first service receipt of warrant of arrest. No, service of warrant of arrest. If you are being served with warrant of arrest and then you are brought to the court, no, for arraignment, then the court acquired personal jurisdiction over the person of the accused. If through voluntary surrender and the accused was arraigned, no, I cannot explain to you what is arraignment because you have not enrolled yet in Crim Pro. It would be premature, but you just need to understand that jurisdiction of the personal jurisdiction is only acquired after the accused was arraigned. Okay? So, for example, A murdered B, but the A was not arraigned. No, the court failed to acquire personal jurisdiction over the person. Okay? So, after 20 years, and the court has not yet, was not able to acquire personal jurisdiction over the person, then after the lapse of 20 years, you cannot file a case anymore. Okay? That is prescription. After the lapse of X number of years, you can no longer file a case. Okay? That is prescription of crimes. On the other hand, prescription of penalty, okay? After trial, you were the personal jurisdiction, because what is important here is this. Once the court acquires personal jurisdiction over you and you escape from prison or you jump out of bail, so meaning na-acquire na yung jurisdiction over the person, but that person escapes the jail, or if he was banded, he escapes and flee to another area, the criminal trial can still proceed, okay? And then judgment can still be rendered. But if the personal jurisdiction was not acquired, trial cannot proceed. So that is very important concept in criminal procedure. So when we say prescription of penalties, there is judgment already. For example, you are adjudged to suffer reclusion perpetua, that is 20 years and 1 day to 40 years, and you escape the prison, and after 20 years, I think 20 years gapo, after 20 years, again, death and reclusion perpetua 20 years, you were not able to, after the lapse of 20 years, you were not able, the police officer were not able to cut you, you were not incarcerated, you were not imprisoned for the next 20 years, no? After the judgment has been rendered, then if after 20 years have lapsed, then you return, let's say, for example, you killed someone here in Camiguin, then you were arraigned and what's determined that you committed murder and you were sentenced to a reclusion perpetua, no? A penalty of reclusion perpetua. Then you escape prison, no? To avoid serving the sentence. Then after 20 years, you return home in Mambahaw, Camiguin, the police officer can no longer, what do you call that? Can no longer arrest you, okay? Because the service of your penalty has already prescribed, okay? That's kinda amazing, no? So that would be all for the extinction of criminal liability, the total extinction of criminal liability. Do you have any other questions? Class, do you have any questions? Wala? Wala na yung question? So, ready na mo to take your final exam?
Mate, ready na ba mo?
Okay.